Hey everybody, welcome back. Today we're going to talk about web forms and some of the new things in HTML5. What a web form is anytime you need to collect data from the viewer of your website, you would use a form to do so. So think of it this way: if you're signing up for a Facebook account, you're going to use a form to do that, to come up with a username and enter all your details. In this case, this is just a simple form I found on somebody's website. This is very beautifully designed. This is a simple contact form. You can enter your name, an email, and a message. If you're updating your blog, you would use a form to do that. If you're posting a comment on someone's blog, you would use a form to do that. If you're updating your status on Facebook, you use a form. So forms are extremely important to the vitality of the internet, to web pages in general. And anytime you need to collect data from a user, this is how you're going to do it. Let's go ahead and dive in. I'm going to create, let's go into TextMate. I'll create a new file. Let's save this as forms.html. And I'm going to go ahead and use Text Expander to put in my HTML5 framework. And let's give this a title of Forms Example. And we're ready to go. So let's go down to the body tag. Now, anytime you're going to create a form, you need to start by using the form tag. Okay, it just defines the next section of data is collecting from the user. So what we're going to do is use the form tag. And if you've done these before, you know that the form tag requires, or typically has several elements, or attributes within inside of that. You can have, the data type. You can have an ID for the form. You can have the method, whether it's post or get. We're not going to get into those just right now. I want to talk about what comes inside the form itself in this particular episode. So inside here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a label, and let's spell it right, label, and let's close that out. And what this does is we're just going to put some text in here, and it's just giving it an element so you can target this with JavaScript or CSS or something like that. And we'll say enter your name, colon, and we're good to go. So under that, we need to create an input field. So we're going to use the input tag, and we'll say input, and we're going to give this several attributes. Let's give it an ID equals the name. And we're going to say name equals, and I'll talk about the difference here. We'll call this username. And finally, let's give it a type. And the type is going to be equal to text. And we'll self-close that tag. Now, this basically tells the browser a couple things. It gives it an ID. So if I need to target this, once again, using CSS or JavaScript, that's set up. The type is going to be text. And then finally, in the middle, I put a name attribute. And this is really important in forms because typically what you're going to do is you're going to collect this data from the user. Then you have to send it back to the server. And the server is going to do something with that. So if it's an email form, it's going to send you an email with that data in it. Or if you're putting it into a database or something like that. Now, the important thing here is to have a name associated with that, because typically what you're going to do in object-oriented programming is you're going to deal with what's called variables. We've talked a little bit about those in previous podcasts, but basically, the variable here, you think of it like this. Think of it as a box, and that box is going to contain the username. But the box needs to have a name so the server knows what's in that box and what to do with it, consequently. So what we've done here is we've set up the name of that variable. So that this is going to be username. So the server will see this as username equals and then whatever the user inputs into that. This allows the server to know what's coming, and at the same time, that variable data can be different. That content inside that box can be different for every user that's using your website. So that's basically what we're doing there. Another thing you can do is you can target the label. We can use an attribute called for, F-O-R, equals, and then I'm going to put the, and then capital N-A-M-E. And so the label is for the name. And what this did is it simply binded this label with this input field. And that does it for a couple reasons. Again, when we get into JavaScript, things like that, it'll come in very handy. And plus, for your own general organization, it's really good too. Let's do another one. Let's create a label. Label, can't spell today, and let's close that out, and let's put let's say we're gonna collect their telephone number too. So we'll say for and equals, and we'll say tel num, and we'll go ahead and say enter your phone number, and we'll go ahead and do an input field for that too. So let's go input ID equals. Now we're going to bind it to that label, so it's going to be the same as the for. So tel num, and we'll say name equals. Now this is the variable name, so we'll call this user number or whatever you want to call it. Again, no spaces. And then we'll say type equals text. And let's go ahead and close that tag out. Now we've created basically two input fields and two labels. Let's go ahead and look at this in the browser, and you can see no big surprise. Here they are. Enter your name would go in that box, and enter your number, and it would go into this text field here. Now, a couple things that are new in HTML5 that are very handy that I want to talk about here. The first one is called placeholder. And placeholder text basically is text you want to sit in here until the user types something. And this used to be possible only through JavaScript, and HTML5 now is including this, so there's a lot less coding you have to do. It's real easy. Let's go into the phone number, and we're going to add another attribute in here. And let's just say placeholder. And this is just going to be placeholder text equals, and then we'll say like 555.555.1212. So if you want to give the user, a hint as to what format you want to collect that phone number in, this would be very important because, they may be putting parentheses or something in there, and that's not how you want to collect that number. So let's go back over here. Let's refresh the page, and you can see right here where it says enter your phone number. We just have that placeholder text I put in, which can give the user a clue as to the format that they need to add in there. And when I click inside that box, notice the placeholder text goes away. And if I enter something into that box and then deselect it, it stays, but if nothing is in that box and I deselect, it puts the placeholder text. So basically it means if nothing is in that field, it's going to drop that placeholder text in there. Another handy thing, and you can do this on all the fields if you want, and it definitely helps with usability and the like. Another thing you can do, which Google used to do a long time ago and kind of still do on the I Feel Lucky part of their website, but anyway, you can use what is called autofocus. And what autofocus does is automatically, as soon as I go to the page, it will automatically place this cursor right here in the search box. You see this on sites like Amazon, like it'll automatically put you right into the search box. And to do that, you use the auto focus variable, and we're going to put it inside the name on this one. So let's go ahead and just say, not caps lock down, autofocus. And this is Boolean, so I just need to write the word autofocus, which either means yes or no, and we're saying yes, put it in there. And now you can see when I go to this URL or refresh the page, it puts the cursor right in that first box. So I'm ready to enter my name. So these are two new elements that are really handy to have in HTML5 because these used to require a lot of JavaScripting, which took more time, and now they're built right into the HTML, which is really nice. Another thing you can do, which is really cool, is, for instance, if you need to require these fields, you can actually go in here and type the word required. And what that does is not a lot visually. Required. But what this will do is if you need to use JavaScript to go through and make sure that they have all the required fields filled out, this will allow you to collect more information. So that's what required does. One other one that I think is really important to have here, and this would go inside the form tag, is the autocomplete attribute. And autocomplete, you've probably noticed that in some browsers, I don't have it set up on this one, but you can actually autofill. Well, actually, if I enter my name, as you can see when I get the first letter of Ted in, it pulls my full name in. And that's kind of nice to be able to autocomplete. And I might want that if I'm the only user on this computer, but I probably, for instance, don't want my bank login information or my account number or something in there or my credit card. And so what we can do is say autocomplete, and then we'll say equals off. You can turn this on or off. And so now when I come back over, you can see, let's refresh. And as soon as I start typing the letter T, see, it's not auto-completing now. So that's pretty important too. And I know that's such a little detail, but it's a really important one, especially if you're dealing with banks or important information like that. So those are a few of the things that I'm going to talk about in this podcast. We're going to go on into the next episode, and I'm going to talk about a few others. These are the ones that are ready to use now, pretty much in HTML5, and I'm going to talk about some of the others that basically are representing things that are to come within HTML5. So let's go on into the next episode, and we'll talk about those then.